the house on Willow Creek Lane had pristine white vinyl siding, a perfectly manicured lawn, and a porch swing that groaned softly in the autumn breeze. To anyone driving by, it looked like the ultimate American dream. But inside, it was a living nightmare for 19-year-old Chloe. She had been completely invisible in her own home ever since her mother passed away 5 years ago. Her father had remarried a woman named Brenda, a cold, calculating woman who viewed Chloe not as a daughter, but as a severe financial inconvenience. When Chloe's father tragically died in a workplace accident a year later, Brenda's true colors completely surfaced. Chloe became the household servant, cooking, cleaning, and doing everything while Brenda spent the insurance payout on expensive clothes and online shopping. Chloe had a full scholarship offer to a state college sitting in her email inbox, but Brenda had changed the account password months ago, keeping her trapped. It was a freezing, rainy Tuesday evening in November. The wind was howling against the windows, throwing sheets of ice-cold water against the glass. Brenda was curled up on the sofa under a plush blanket, sipping expensive wine and scrolling through her phone. Chloe was in the kitchen, her hands raw and shivering from scrubbing the hardwood floors with ice-cold water, because Brenda refused to turn on the basement heater to save money on utilities. Suddenly, a faint, hesitant knock echoed from the front door. Brenda didn't even look up from her screen. "Chloe, get the door," she snapped, her voice cutting through the warmth of the living room. Chloe wiped her hands on her stained apron and hurried to open it. Standing on the porch, shivering violently under the harsh glow of the porch light, was a young man. He looked to be around 24, wearing a soaked, tattered denim jacket that offered absolutely no protection against the bitter cold. His shoes were held together by layers of gray duct tape. Yet, despite his hollow cheeks and pale skin, his eyes were remarkably calm and sharp. His name was Austin. He had been living on the streets for 2 years after an apartment fire took everything he owned. "I'm so sorry to bother you, miss," Austin said, his teeth chattering so hard the words barely came out. "I don't want money. I haven't eaten in 2 days. Anything warm would save my life tonight." Before Chloe could even answer, Brenda walked up behind her, holding her wine glass. She looked at Austin with utter disgust, the exact way someone looks at trash on the sidewalk. "We don't give handouts to lazy bums," Brenda sneered. "Get off my property before I call the police." "Please, ma'am," Austin whispered, holding his trembling hands out. "Just a piece of bread." Brenda smiled. It was a cruel, twisted smile. She looked at Austin, then looked at Chloe. An evil idea formed in her mind, a way to finally rid herself of the last reminder of her dead husband. "You know what? You can have her," Brenda said casually, taking a sip of her wine. Austin blinked, wiping rain from his eyes. "What? Her?" Brenda pointed at Chloe. "Take her with you. She's 19, she's a leech, she eats my food, and she's costing me utilities. Consider it charity. Take her off my hands right now." Chloe froze, the blood drained from her face. She waited for Brenda to laugh, to say it was a sick joke. But Brenda's face was dead serious. "Pack your bags, Chloe," Brenda said, her voice freezing cold. "You've been a burden for 4 years. I'm done. Your father is dead, this house is mine, and I want you out, right now." Chloe looked into Brenda's eyes and saw absolutely nothing, no guilt, no hesitation, just pure malice. In that exact second, something shifted inside Chloe. The fear vanished, replaced by a sudden, burning realization that she was finally being released from her prison. Without saying a single word, Chloe walked back to her tiny bedroom, packed 3 sweaters, her mother's old silver locket, and walked right past Brenda into the dark, freezing night, leaving the heartless woman behind forever. They walked in silence for 20 minutes, the freezing rain soaking through their clothes until their skin went numb. The grand houses of the suburbs with their manicured lawns slowly faded into the bleak gray concrete of the industrial district. Finally, Austin broke the silence, his voice competing with the sound of the storm. "You shouldn't have come out here," Austin said softly, staring at the wet pavement. "You have rights. You could have called the cops. I can't protect you out here. I don't even have a roof." "The cops wouldn't care," Chloe said, her voice shaking from the cold but steady with resolve. "She's been killing my spirit for 4 years. No one helped me then, I'm not going back." Austin didn't argue. He led her to an abandoned, boarded-up train station on the edge of the city. It was dark and smelled of damp concrete, but it was dry. Austin crawled into a corner, where he had a makeshift bed, made of flattened cardboard boxes, and a single, heavy wool blanket. He immediately grabbed the blanket and handed it to Chloe. "Take it," he said, sitting flat against the cold brick wall, shivering in his wet denim jacket. Chloe looked at the blanket, then looked at him. "We share it," she said. She sat down next to him, spreading the heavy wool over both of their laps. As the hours ticked away toward dawn, they talked in whispers. Austin told her how he used to work as an apprentice mechanic, before a fire took his shop and his home, how his family lived across the country and didn't even know he was alive, and how employers turned him away the second he couldn't provide a permanent address. He wasn't broken. He wasn't lazy. He was just trapped in a vicious cycle. "Why did you pick that specific house tonight?" Chloe asked quietly.
"Porch swing,"
Austin murmured. "My mom had one just like it. I thought, maybe whoever lives there has a good heart." Chloe let out a soft bittersweet laugh. "I'm the one who painted that porch swing." Austin looked at her in the dim light. "I know, the rest of the house felt cold, but that swing felt like home." The next morning, Chloe's survival instincts kicked in. She wasn't going to let them starve. She noticed Austin's hands. They were covered in old calluses, the hands of someone who knew how to build and fix things. "There's an auto repair shop 3 blocks away," Chloe said, looking at him. "I see their flyers all the time. They need night shift mechanics. Let's go." Austin looked down at his ruined shoes. "They'll look at me and see a vagrant." "They'll look at you and see whoever is standing next to you," Chloe said firmly. "And I'm standing next to you." They walked into the greasy, loud auto shop. The owner, a gruff, middle-aged man named Marcus, immediately frowned when he saw Austin. "No spare change here, bud. Move along." Chloe stepped right up to the counter. "He's not asking for change. He's asking for a trial. Give him 2 hours on your toughest engine repair. If he can't fix it, we leave. If he does, you hire him for the night shift, cash in hand." Marcus looked at Chloe's fierce, unwavering gaze, then at Austin. He shrugged, pointing to an old pickup truck in the corner with a shattered transmission. 2 hours. Go. Austin didn't just fix it. He completed the job in an hour and a half. Marcus's jaw dropped. He hired Austin on the spot. That first week's cash went toward a tiny, cramped studio apartment above a noisy 24-hour diner. The wallpaper was peeling, the plumbing hissed, and the streetlights blinked through the window all night. But to Chloe and Austin, it was a palace. It had a lock on the door that Brenda didn't have a key to. With Austin working nights, Chloe spent her days at the local library. She recovered her email account, contacted the state college admissions office, explained her situation, and got her scholarship reinstated for the spring semester. At night, before Austin left for work, they sat on the floor of their tiny apartment. Chloe would help Austin study for his advanced mechanic certifications, mapping out complex wiring diagrams on cheap notebooks. 6 months later, Austin was promoted to shop manager. He came home one morning, his face clean-shaven, wearing a fresh uniform, and handed Chloe an envelope. Inside was enough money for her first semester textbooks and a down payment on a better apartment. He looked at her with wet eyes. "Marcus said I'm the most reliable partner he's seen in 10 years. Chloe hugged him tightly, the tears finally flowing freely. They had saved each other, turning their shared abandonment into an unbreakable bond of true love and financial independence. Meanwhile, back on Willow Creek Lane, Brenda's perfect life was quietly and completely dismantling itself. Karma has a devastating way of coming back around, especially when human cruelty is caught on camera. It turned out that, our neighbor's high-definition doorbell camera had captured the entire interaction from that freezing, rainy Tuesday night. The clear audio of Brenda calling her stepdaughter a leech, throwing her out into the dark, and literally handing her over to a starving stranger. The neighbor, horrified by what she witnessed on the footage, shared it with a few local families. Within 48 hours, the video went viral within the community. And then across the entire state, the neighborhood had a long memory, and the backlash was immediate. Brenda became an absolute social pariah. The women she used to whisper with at the local country club completely cut her off, quietly removing her from their group chats and blocking her number. When she walked down the aisle of the local grocery store, People turned their shopping carts around to avoid her. Neighbors who had known her for years crossed the street when they saw her walking down the driveway. She tried to tell herself she didn't care, but for a woman whose entire identity was built on social status and the appearance of perfection, the isolation was a suffocating torment. But the social ruin was only the beginning. Without Chloe around to manage the household expenses and hide the cracks in the finances, Brenda's reckless spending caught up with her. Worse, the sudden viral infamy drew unwanted attention to her financial affairs. The corporate fraud investigators and the bank began auditing the estate of Brenda's late husband. They quickly discovered that Brenda had systematically forged her late husband's signature on several massive business loans and lines of credit before his passing, using the house as collateral to fund her lavish lifestyle. The bank moved aggressively. One brisk, overcast afternoon, a sleek black sedan pulled up the immaculate driveway of Willow Creek Lane. Two bank officials and a county sheriff's deputy stepped out of the vehicle, carrying official foreclosure and immediate eviction notices. Brenda opened the door, her face pale, her hands shaking violently as she clutched a designer purse, one of the last expensive things she owned. "Ma'am, the county and the bank have taken full possession of this property," the deputy said, handing her the paperwork. "You need to step outside immediately." Coincidentally, at that exact moment, a reliable, clean car pulled up to the curb a few houses down. Austin had rebuilt the engine himself. And it ran perfectly. Chloe and Austin were there to collect the final pieces of Chloe's mail, which had been forwarded to Miss Tanya, the kind neighbor who had saved the doorbell footage. Austin slowed the car down as they saw the flashing lights and the commotion. From the passenger seat, Chloe watched the scene unfold. Brenda, stripped of all her pride, turned around and recognized the car. She saw Chloe's calm, serene face through the passenger window. Desperate, with absolutely nowhere left to turn, Brenda ran toward the edge of the driveway like a madwoman, tears streaming down her face, ruining her expensive makeup. "Chloe, please, you have to help me," Brenda sobbed, grabbing the passenger side door handle of their car. "They're taking the house, I have no money, my accounts are frozen, and I have nowhere to go. Please, I'm your family." Chloe rolled down the window just a few inches. She looked at the frantic woman who had terrorized her youth. The woman who had literally given her away, like a piece of worthless garbage on a rainy night. Chloe's voice wasn't angry, it wasn't spiteful or loud, it was entirely hollow, cold, and clear. "You had a daughter," Chloe said, looking straight into Brenda's panicked, bloodshot eyes, "but you gave her away to a stranger on the porch because you decided she wasn't worth keeping. You told me I was a burden." Brenda choked on her tears, her lips trembling violently. "I was wrong, Chloe, please, I have nobody. You thought you were throwing away a piece of trash," Chloe whispered, as Austin gently pressed his foot onto the gas pedal. "But all you actually did was set me free." Chloe rolled the window back up, sealing out the desperate cries. She didn't look back in the rearview mirror as the sheriff's deputy firmly guided Brenda away from the property, leaving her alone on the sidewalk with nothing but her suitcase. 1 year later, the autumn sun shone brightly on the steps of the university campus. It was graduation day. Chloe stood in her cap and gown, holding her bachelor's degree with honors. Austin stood right beside her, clean-shaven, wearing a tailored suit, looking at her like she was the center of his universe. He had recently been made a full partner at the auto shop, and their financial independence was entirely secure. Austin reached into his pocket and handed Chloe a small, velvet box. Inside was a beautiful, simple silver bracelet. Engraved on the inside were 3 words, "Never alone again." Chloe smiled, tears of pure happiness filling her eyes as she wrapped it around her wrist. The woman who had thrown her away was still paying for a lifetime of greed and cruelty, entirely forgotten. But the girl she discarded had stopped counting her losses a long time ago. They had built a real home out of nothing, and for the first time in her life, Chloe knew exactly what it felt like to be completely free.